What is up, gamers? It is I, the People's Machine, coming back to you with another exciting episode of Gaming Roundtable, brought to you, as always, by our friends Unpaid Gamers. Check out Unpaid Gamers on YouTube.com and Twitch. And with me tonight is the founder, the creator, and the master of Unpaid Gamers himself, Post-Human Guy, my friend John. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. What's up, guys?
Hey, I want to thank everyone that tuned in. I just did a video. Tune into that. It's got some announcements coming up. I did that. Genre week coming up. Enough about that. This is the long-awaited year in review. We're not talking about this year because we're only a week in. We're talking about 2020. And a lot happened in the gaming industry, and we're going to discuss a little bit about this year in last year, because so much went on between January and at the end of the year. It's been a
wild year, 2020.
Yes, it has. From most insane election year I've ever experienced in my life, and on top of the pandemic, which is something I never thought I would experience, and we're still dealing with in 2021. Hopefully they put the squash on that, because you know what? This affected me marrying my bride-to-be, and I know you have the computer business and stuff, so I'm sure it may have even affected you in some way, shape, or form. I'm sure it did, because it seems like this pandemic just touched everything.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, not in a detrimental way, but, it's affected everybody for lots of different reasons. So, yeah. I mean, we're just trying to get through like everybody else.
Oh, yes. So we are going to be doing this video, and I invited Post-Human Guy back because, his love for games and what he represents with Unpaid Gamers, because I'm very appreciative to being back with them and the Gaming Roundtable, and having our subscriber base and followers, and everybody's just been great. Continue to hit those subscribe buttons and like buttons and follow us all. I'm up to a lot of followers right now on PlayStation, which is pretty amazing, and a lot of it's thanks to Unpaid Gamers and the content that we put out there. John, before we get into this year review, what have you been streaming? What have you been podcasting? What's been on your videos? Because I know with the holidays we haven't been able to touch base.
Yeah, truthfully, not much has changed. I'm still working through Cyberpunk, and I don't want to just stream nothing but Cyberpunk over and over, so I've just been kind of relaxing, playing through that. Although, I'm also playing through Demon Souls.
Very nice.
Which is very difficult for me because I'm new to the series anyway. So, I would stream some of that. But and I may end up doing that, but I'm such a noob at that game. I feel kind of shameful showing some of that, because I'm trying to figure it out. It took me a bit just to figure out about the messages and the blood stains and things like that.
Yes.
I've never gotten to that series before, so
yes.
I might stream some of that. But that's kind of my main things right now is Cyberpunk and Demon Souls.
That's great, because they're very, very different in genre, and Demon Souls I never had the opportunity to play. I've watched many videos on it, and they remastered the second one, and they remastered the first one, and they remastered and they just never touched the first one. I always was surprised that they just didn't bother to put it on the PS4. And but I know this, whenever the day comes and I buy a PS5, I am definitely doing Demon Souls, because I have completed Dark Souls 2 and 3, Bloodborne, those series, but they're not for the faint of heart, for sure, like you said. They are very fair games, though. Usually you die, it's because I just wanted to get one more swing in, and nope. It's a very methodical style game. It favors the defensive style strategy, move and guile and counter move, where like Bloodborne was the opposite. It's much more aggressive, and you have to kind of flip the script on that. But if Demon Souls is where it started, and it's great. Yeah. And so anybody
it's kind of an odd place to kind of start talking about. Again, it is a game of 2020 and one of the late ones and one of the launch titles for the new next gen systems. But it is a remaster too. So That series, I tried it out when, because I know Demon Souls was the first one on PS3, but I never had that. So
yes,
360, it was Dark Souls, right?
Yes,
the first one.
Yes.
So I remember trying it, and at the time I was and just got my ass handed to me. And I'm like, okay, I could figure this out, but it's kind of stressful, so I'm just going to go back to Elder Scrolls, and I'm like, it's just not for me, that series. And
Yes.
I've just never touched it since then. But, that remaster looks so good. And in my mind, it's kind of, since it was the first one, it seems like a good place to kind of try to get into it. So
No, that's actually very good, yeah.
So I'm approaching it very old school, going and looking up how to beat things. I'm just kind of going through it, trying to figure it out. So, it's a steep learning curve, and I feel like, a loser at times because I'm not doing very well.
Yeah, I know how you feel. I've been there, done that.
But you're right, though, because it is very fair feeling. There's a handful of times where I died, and it's because I got greedy or I got careless, I felt like. So, just kind of going back and trying it again and trying to learn from that mistake. So, just taking it slow and not using the internet for help. And so far, it's been a really great game.
Well, that's great. That's good.
I got to take
I'm
it
glad.
kind of in slices, though, because it is still, it stresses me out.
Yes, and the thing about that series or any of those Souls-like series is one of the things that I applaud from Software, the creative director of those games. Bloodborne's first, Dark Souls, and 3. He did not direct the second one, which is why the second one is my least favorite, because that's a whole nother thing, and I'll get into that with a video if I do the Dark Souls week. The thing about the difficulty, what he said was, the difficulty was not to be difficult for difficult's sake. It was difficult. The difficulty was a way of bringing you into the world and the story, and it's interesting to think of difficulty that way. And one of the things that I've always appreciated with that series, once I understood its mechanics and its builds and the things with Dark Souls, for me, and those games genre, is nothing is more satisfying than conquering something that you thought there's no way I could beat this, and then you beat whatever boss or whatever area. It's just immensely satisfying, because it's like cutting my teeth. I cut my teeth on old games like Castlevania, where you had 3 lives and no continues, and you got to beat the game, and that's it. And it was hard, but you see patterns, you see things, and you can do it, and it's very satisfying. And Souls is great because the world is dynamic, especially in the later games where everything kind of wraps back in on itself, and you find, a shortcut here, and it's very risk and reward. It's like, do I push forward and risk losing the 10,000 souls I have to level up, because I might fight something that's hard that I cannot beat because I just can't? Or do I go back and level up, but then I got to fight everything to get back to the point? And it's very much a game where you make those decisions yourself. It's not like a Mass Effect where you make choices and it's dialogue and narrative based. This is literally you saying, you sit there and you have to debate what is the smart. It's because there's no right or wrong, and that game encapsulates that. You just feel very much in control of your destiny in that game, and I think that's why the genre has taken off in the way it has, because it is and it's not a game for everybody. I've always said that, but if you can learn its systems and learn its intricacies, it's a tremendous game. I never, so.
Yeah, it's definitely not for everybody, and I don't know that it's going to necessarily be my favorite series, but again, I have enjoyed jumping into the Demon Souls and kind of seeing what it's all about, and it doesn't hold your hand at all. It doesn't really hardly explain anything at all, so I've had to sit and kind of figure out everything, but I progressed far enough to kind of beat my first boss, which felt good about. So I don't know. I feel like a little kid saying that.
Yeah, well, that's that serious.
And I really should be better and enjoy it more than what I do at times, because I'm an old school arcade gamer, right?
Yes.
And I should enjoy that challenge, but I don't know anymore. I kind of like to just relax and chill and play games. But
you could
it's
almost
definitely a good mix.
yes, and you could almost blame the developers who have these long, drawn-out tutorials and hand-holding where you're used to having that crutch all the time. And I'm not saying that's bad or good. It's just you're used to that. So when you don't have that, you're like, what? You know, so
there's quite a bit to this game, but it doesn't tell you anything. And I don't know, if is Dark Souls like, because this has the whole light and dark world kind of deal for each of these gates that you go into. Is Dark Souls like that?
Dark Souls is more of an open world in the sense that you go from area to area, but the area is very large. And Dark Souls takes place in the same world, obviously, but this is more expanded upon with the main prophecy and all that stuff. So you get into the game and you're like, you could be going somewhere and you might be in this room and you look up and there's a ladder but you can't reach it. Then you're going around and around and around, and then you find there's the ladder and I can kick it, and it becomes a new shortcut. And the maps are all designed to kind of fold back in on itself somehow, some way. So when you find those little shortcuts, like, that takes me right back to the bonfire. Yes, so it's like
poor use of word of like a Metroidvania kind of style.
In a way, no, it is. No, I mean, it's not really poor. I mean, in many ways, it does have that kind of vibe, just because a lot of people love finding those weird shortcuts or weird this or oh wow, that door led to here, but it leads me back here, but then that can lead me over to here, and so the thing about Dark Souls is it's like, I know Demon's Souls is like set up with different areas of the world, and you go down and you go into the different areas of the world. And I know Souls is more like at the very beginning you can go to any part of the game world you wish. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can. They leave you with the decision to make the decision to go, yeah, I probably shouldn't be here. I better back on up.
See, I think, and I guess that's if you go through and play them, you could probably see that evolution, because this is kind of, it's somewhat that way in a sense, like, but it does kind of gate parts of the level off. But once you go through and defeat the first boss, it opens up the gates to these other worlds.
Yes.
And you're free to go in between them all if you want.
Yes.
But I think it gates things off, of course, by difficulty, and then like, because I beat that boss, I can go to the next part of that world if I choose, or I could go to one of the other ones.
Yes, and that's the thing, because
like its first stage or something.
Yeah, that decision, they open up multiple gates after that, because it's not necessarily that one area is more difficult than the other. They don't say, we want, again, like Dark Souls, we want you to make that decision, and you should. Are you going to be smart enough to say, okay, that's a little too tough for me, or you can say, well, you know what, it's very skill based, so I have the skill, even if I'm underpowered, to still get through it. And it's like that's the risk and reward of that series. And Demon's Souls started that and became a huge sleeper hit, and it's really nice that they decided to remaster it for the newer systems, because it can really take advantage of the hardware. Because again, I'm a little jealous that I can't play it. It's the one in the series I've never played, and I'm hoping that will be definitely on my list to get once when I get a PS5. That will be on the list. Buy it, because I've got to play. I've played through Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne. The From Software stuff is amazing, and I'm playing through Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, another From Software game, and it's very different than the other Souls, because it's samurai stuff, and it's very hard, and it's challenging and fair, but there's a lot of stealth involved too, so it kind of flips things on its head again. That's one of the things I like about them. From Software continuously pushes the envelope with that genre. They invented it. So interestingly enough, before we get too wrapped up in talking about Dark Souls, the original, I don't know if you remember these. Do you remember the games Kingsfield? The first person dungeon crawling, kind of pseudo difficult. It was on the original PlayStation, PlayStation 1.
I don't think I do.
Well, here's the funny thing: if it was also made by From Software before they were From Software, it's the same people though, right? Like they were a smaller company. Kingsfield, yes. Kingsfield. And believe it or not, that game world also takes place in the same world as the Dark Souls series. A lot of people don't know that. Yeah, and that came out till way later. But speaking of remasters, there was a lot last year. There was a lot of remasters. I know they did Resident Evil 2. That was redone from the ground up and remastered. And Desiree, my fiance, she has it. I bought it for her. She's a big RE fan. I have not played it. I mean, I've played it in the sense that I've played it, on the other GameCube. Yeah. I see. And but like that game was remastered. They remastered the first
remake.
Yes, they redone it from the ground up. They remastered and rebuilt it from the ground up. They did Spyro. They remastered the Crash Bandicoot series. They remastered Borderlands 1. There was a lot of games from a number of years ago, old games from back in the day, and stuff that's still relatively new, 7-8 years ago. There was a lot of that in 2020. We had a lot of new games like IP, a lot of sequels, but really they remastered a ton of games. They remastered Final Fantasy VII. They remastered the Devil. They remastered Devil May Cry series. So yeah, they did a lot.
There's a little bit of love-hate, I think, with remasters for me. I do like them. I don't dislike them. I suffering at the because of releasing remasters, but I do enjoy remasters though. Out of the ones you mentioned, was RE2, was that last year or was that 2019?
No, it was 2020. I'm pretty sure it was 2020 because Resident Evil 3 was also came out too along the same lines using the newer engine. Yeah,
I haven't played that one, but I do have them both. I have played RE2, not all the way through, but I played quite a bit of it, and it's it's very good, very intense, and it reminds me of like the RE remake when they initially did it.
Yeah,
for like GameCube and stuff.
I remember that. It was awesome. The RE1 remake was fantastic for GameCube. Yeah, I mean, really pushed the power of that system.
The Crash remake trilogy, that was great.
Did you play Spyro?
I didn't, but I've never been into those games really.
Really interesting was the fact that like most remasters are just that. They don't really do a whole lot. They remaster some textures. It's almost like when they bring out another CD and they do like they make it better or whatever. That was actually built from the ground up. They took that and they did that game, and so when you play it, it's like it's all new. It's a new engine, a new everything, but they kept all the maps and all the enemies and everything. They just remodeled everything and built it from the ground up. And you get all 3 Spyro games. You don't just get the first one; you get them all. So that's kind of nice for the price. And they remastered late in the year. We got the remastered of Medieval, which was a very popular game on PlayStation 1, and we got the remaster of that, and we got the remaster of the completely redone from the ground up Final Fantasy VII. And I have never liked Final Fantasy VII, but the remake is like, it's really good. Like, it's like, I actually now like it. So
I haven't played the remake. I do want to play. It's on my list to play. I did, however, really like Final Fantasy VII.
Yes.
I played it back in the day for PS1. Of course, the original fantasy universe that Final Fantasy was in, and then that is definitely not it. And I don't know, it is weird to me, but I guess, and I'm sure there's a lot of hardcore. I know there's a lot of hardcore Final Fantasy people that will probably tear some of this statement apart, but I never really got too much into 4, 5, 6, 8. Things like that, like to explore, I guess, the continuity side of the story thing. So back then, I just played 7 for just a PS1 Final Fantasy 7 game, and not knowing much about the surrounding games, and it was great. I mean, I enjoyed it from start to finish. It was one of the best RPGs at the time, I think.
Well,
so,
they actually...
I did really like it, but I am curious. I know they changed the combat and the style of the game,
and that's what. Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Yeah, the combat is different. It's no longer turn based. It's like kind of real time / not real time. It's hard to describe, but it's so good. And because they redid it and the way the world is and the stuff they added, it is so good. It definitely is up there. And if anybody that was a lot of people, see, I played the original and had it growing up, the original first Final Fantasy on the 8-bit NES, and I couldn't get into 7 when it came out on the PlayStation 1. I just couldn't, and I love the new one now. I'm actually a fan of it. And you know, speaking of Final Fantasy remakes and remasters, they remastered 8. They put out 9. They put out the Zodiac Age. Like, Square Enix was like, if it's Final Fantasy, let's remaster it. Shit, you know. So that's kind of what they did this year. They put out a bunch of the ones that people favored. I don't think they did X or 10 or X2 or whatever. I don't remember seeing those as a remaster. But little known fact, X is a prequel to 7. And it takes place on the same world. And you meet a little boy in that series that talks about how he wants to use the life force of a planet as power, and that ends up being the guy that's head of the Mishima or whatever corporation. It's funny. So it's actually, a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't even realize it, that 10 or X, Final Fantasy X, is a prequel to 7. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, but again, I don't really follow the series so much.
Well,
other than... really, probably in that continuity, I think 8's probably the last one I played.
Well, and the funny thing is that they're not really interconnected. The only ones that really are connected is 7 and 10, and that's just loosely connected because they added what they did, and there's some other things. And of course, like the Lightning series, which is Final Fantasy 13. There was 13-2, and then 13 Lightning Returns, and that is that whole thing ties together. But most of the time, the Final Fantasies are not connected. I have Final Fantasy 15, the Royal Edition or whatever, and that's open world, and like that game's insane, and it's such an amazing game, and even the multiplayer aspect is fun and really good. It has a lot of Monster Hunter like elements to it. Which I'm going to have to talk about on that when I do Monster Hunter Week, because it does. It has some of that. It's like their version of Monster Hunter, and it's completely separate from the main game now because that's gotten so big that they had to do that. But they did. Square Enix did a lot of remasters, and like I was very happy to see Borderlands, the first one. I love the Borderlands series, and I loved the first game, and they redid it with all the DLC. And redid some of the texture work and stuff like that, and I was very happy because I love the second one. I love the prequel. I really do like the pre-sequel. A lot of people didn't. I loved it, and I really loved the third one. It's great with the retooled combat. But the first one was I put so much time in the first one, and I'm glad to see that. But yeah, it seemed like 2020. You know, you touch base on maybe some new IP suffering.
Well, hold on a second before you move on there. There is one more remaster I want to mention, but real quick on the
sure
Borderlands. I'm glad they did the remaster for 1. I didn't like it back then when it came out because I just wasn't into the cell shading stuff at the time. And I really didn't play the series until 3, and 3's amazing. So I'm happy they did that remaster. I think it was a PS Plus, so I added it to my library. Is on my list to play at some point. So anyway, that's my input on that. But one more remake I think you need to mention, because it's one of the best ones of the year, is Tony Hawk.
I forgot. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's an excellent remake. If if you like that style of skateboarding, it's
those games are classic. You know, they're just so, they were so well done at the time. There was a couple of other skateboarding games, but nothing quite. Tony Hawk just had the right accessibility and ease of play, but, that I put way too much time in those games when they came out, and that was
yeah
really really good. And I didn't pick that one up at the time. I don't remember what was out or coming out. I know that came out, and then something else came out that I was wanting, and I don't remember why I didn't. But I think there was just because you get in those periods where you kind of like, well, there's 3 or 4 games I would like to buy, and they're not. And
I remember when it came out, and you were I forget what it was, but you did get something else.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was I was wanting.
Yeah, and I do like Tony Hawk. I mean, it's a great remake. Just for skateboarding in general, I like the Skate series better.
Yes.
But they didn't release anything about that last year.
No. Yeah, it'd be great if they re-released Skate or something. That'd be
apparently they're working on a new one or something.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I think after Tony Hawk had such success, they're thinking about it, of course.
It's nice, that I mean, like I said, I remember not too long ago, maybe 2 years ago, or maybe a year and a half, whatever. I did a video about how many remasters was coming out in 2019, and I feel like there was a lot in 2020. I'm like you. It's double-edged sword for me. It's like, but I also look at it from the other point of view. It's like newer IPs for some of these developers are like it's safer for them from a financial standpoint to remaster something that they know will be successful. Yes, and I get that. But I'm also like you. I'm like, just give me something new that I haven't really played before. And I tell you, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One as well. There was a lot of stuff that was more PC games that got put on the systems. More so than usual. And I think that was nice. Like Hunt Showdown came out. I played that for a long time. It was a fantastic game, even though they kind of botched the single player stuff, which you watched the video I made on that, and that was all jacked up, and it still ain't no better. But that still was another one of those I noticed on the PlayStation Store in particular. I was like, that was on Steam. Oh, that one was on Steam. Oh, that one's on. So a lot of stuff from the PC realm made its way in 2020 onto the consoles, more so than the previous years, in my opinion. I know there was a lot of PC to console stuff. This, like the Rebel Galaxy and Outlaw and stuff like that.
Destroy All Humans remake. That was another one.
Yes, that's where you're right. They completely redid that one too. You're right. There were so many. That's the thing. You could, if you had a list, it's probably like 40 or 50 titles. I mean, maybe not that many, but there's quite a bit. There was a lot, and 2019 was the same way. There was just a lot of remakes in 2019. In 2020, it seems like it was. And the funny thing is, a lot of the games that came out were old games, the favorites, is your Spyro, your Crashes, your Medieval,
and all that stuff. You're talking PS1 early Xbox days.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's also a lot of games that if you weren't gaming back then, you may not have experienced. And when the remaster's good enough, it's I don't know, it's just better to experience it now with a little bit more updated controls or updated graphics or whatever.
No, I agree. I agree with you there. And there was.
I get tired of just a lot of the same old titles. I think I've said that before. But so you talk about like the PC types of releases, or I just like different styles of games. Like we did see Planet Coaster came out right at the end of the year.
Yeah.
The Empire of Sin that I streamed, that came out.
Yeah, that's looking cool. I'd like to get that.
Strategy style, games like that. That typically seen on PC.
Yeah, they even remastered Praetorians and some really old strategy games. Those kind of came out of left field. A lot of that's coming from THQ Nordic because they have been buying. They even redid Kingdom of Amalur, came out late in the year, and that was a 360 title that was criminally underplayed. Great game on the 360, and it surprised. I mean, again, that was THQ Nordic buying a lot of old PC titles, bringing them to the console, and things like that. So it was neat to see not just remasters, but we got to just a few years ago. It was like, man, that's only on PC. I'd love to play that, but I'll never unless I buy a PC. Now there's really good chance of that filtering into the consoles now because it's easier to do that. And so I welcome PC games coming on the console. I just think that's a boon in my opinion.
Like anything different, just something to kind of. I just don't want just nothing but shooters or nothing but RPGs. I like different things. And speaking of different things, another game that came out at kind of the tail end of this past year. I don't know if you heard about it, but Harmonix, the rock band.
Yes.
They had their new game, Fuser. You know anything about that?
I have seen a little bit about it, but I don't know much about it because I didn't look into it. You know what I mean? It was not necessarily on my radar. It just was like, oh, what's that? No, Harmonix is making another thing.
It's pretty cool. I messed around with it on the computer. It's what made me think of it. But it's more kind of on the DJ route. It's not really like DJ Hero either. It's not about hitting controls. It's more about just making music. So
that's neat.
So like when you start your level, you just kind of pick from a handful of licensed tracks, and you kind of put them in your queue pretty much. And then as you're playing, you can pick and choose like drums, vocals, bass line, whatever, from just all these different songs and throw them together and kind of just blend them, and
that
you gotta
cool.
keep the crowd happy. And they apparently are doing like a whole season pass thing and releasing new songs. I haven't really kept to see how active that is, but that's what they had said they were going to do.
Yeah, and that's awesome to see them do something, because me and you had put some time in. I know I used to come over and hang out. We played a lot of Rock Band and had a lot of fun doing that. And I always liked those games. Yeah, Fisticuffs, and I loved playing. Last year, me and Desiree, we got Guitar Hero Live, and unfortunately, Ubisoft quietly got rid of Guitar Hero Live TV. And got rid of any way to get any other songs, so you're just stuck with the 40 songs that it comes with, and that kind of sucks. So, but before I get into Ubisoft, because I want to talk about their year, because they were, pardon my language, fucked, and so it was really bad for them this year. And in some ways it was good, but in a lot of ways they had a rough time, because we're going to have to talk about some of the bad, because there was a lot of bad, Activision layoffs, Ubisoft with their scandals and allegations, not to mention that they really screwed the pooch on several games, and a lot of them got pushed into this year because of failures and different things. And so they kind of, redemption for them with Assassin's Creed Valhalla being really, really good, and people are loving that game. And even Phoenix Rising, which not a whole lot of people's talked about, but it's gotten stellar reviews. But before we get into some of the bad of 2020, because there's a lot of bad, obviously, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. It's but you were talking about you were sitting there, you were talking about what were you talking about? Jeez, I just lost my train of thought. What were you talking about there? You were saying
I was talking about Fuser.
Yeah, Fuser. That's what I'm saying with the music stuff, and we were talking about how we played Rock Band, and I was always sad to see that market did get saturated the way it did, and it kind of fell off. But I would love for them to Rock Band 5 or do something, because those there's a lot of those goofy party games, but those games are excellent, and it speaks to the musician in me, because I've been playing music a long time. This Christmas makes 34 years of playing, and I know you play, and I always appreciated those games for what they did, and even for people who maybe not play music, it gave them that opportunity to know what it maybe felt like to do that. And I hated to see those games go. So it's cool. I'm very happy to hear that Fuser is kind of, hey, you know what? This is what we're doing, and I'm glad to see that they didn't give up on it, because a lot of those companies give up on it. Okay, no one's buying it now, so we're never gonna bother with it again. And I'm happy to hear that Fuser's out there. For people.
That was the problem, going through all that, was heavily oversaturated, that market, and got off. I did always hate to see that too, because I have a big love for Rock Band for many reasons. Just a big music guy anyway. And then I like different types of games, and that was different. And I love like physical interaction with kind of games, and it's a very difficult kind of scenario though, because they made their Rock Band 4 for the new PS4 and Xbox One, but you still got to track down these instruments, right?
Yeah,
and that's cool and it's neat, but I don't think they made enough of them, so then they become really expensive.
Yeah, I've seen them. I've seen that. Yeah, I've
seen. So it really kind of limits the audience on somebody who can just jump in.
Yeah,
and then there's all the licensing about the tracks and the DLC, and you don't want to have to rebuy stuff you bought. I have hundreds of songs still on that Rock Band for 360.
Yeah, because if you were to put it in and play your endless set list, you'd be here for a fucking week. It'd be ridiculous, So,
but I did get 4.
Yeah,
and then I know they went on and did. I think it was Audica was the name of it, but it's a VR one.
Yes,
they did.
yes.
And then of course now this Fuser. So I think those are a little bit more accessible titles that don't really require the physical aspect.
Yeah,
you need to track down an instrument. So I like that they're keeping that up and hopefully keeping people's passion, with music and gaming.
Yeah, because
just experimenting. I think that's cool.
Well, and the thing is that if history's a good teacher, like they oversaturated the market with way too much survival horror. It went away for a little bit. Resident Evil 4 came out and revitalized how survival horror was made, and then it went away again for a little bit, and then it came back even stronger, and now there's this big thing for survival horror. And I think in this music thing, I think that will happen again. I think there will be, we might see a Rock Band 5. You might get your next Guitar Hero. Activision was kind of to blame to put out a Guitar Hero every 8 months, but it was like, trying to keep up. And the way that they did it was you could Rock Band was smart about the way they did it, and Guitar Hero was not. They just put out a game, and then those songs. If you want to do,
I think it was one of the first kind of live service models in a way.
It was, absolutely.
Because when you bought the new game, it was a platform with features, but yet your songs would carry over. To where Guitar Hero was an isolated experience every time. Yeah,
that's true. Speaking of live service in 2020, Jesus Christ, the big kind of successful but kind of flop, live service, Marvel's Avengers, man, that blows me away. That and you played it, I played it, and it's like, God, I loved the story. The campaign was so fun.
The campaign was excellent.
I enjoyed it, even though, we all wanted to see. I wish it was Robert Downey, but it didn't matter. To me, it was great. I loved the story. I even liked playing as Kamala Khan. I was emotionally invested in the story. I loved the beginning at A-Day, and you're walking around as a kid, and you see the Avengers, your heroes, and it's like almost like you don't ever meet your heroes kind of thing, and it was great.
I think if they would use the MCU cast, I think it would have screwed it up.
I think so, too.
As much as that's what people want, it really kind of helped to create this kind of, separate world where they kind of have some freedom of things and could do their own story and not feel tied to it. And I didn't mind it once it was weird seeing it when they first kind of showed it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that doesn't feel like Iron Man. But, when you play the game, though, it really did. And they did a great job. The story was excellent. And
the story was excellent. And it's a shame because it's not really clear from either Square Enix or Crystal Dynamics who decided to make the game more or less a live service game. It's never been real clear if it was the developer who said, hey, we're going to do this, or was Square Enix said, hey, we want you to do this, or both parties were involved. I'm leaning towards both parties are involved. And it's such a shame because the way the game came out, it's come out now that it was definitely rushed, even though it was pushed back. And even it was announced like a number of years ago, it was pushed back. And it still had a lot of glitches and bugs. I encountered game crashes. I actually, weirdly enough, encountered more bugs in that game than Cyberpunk, which makes no sense. But considering what everybody experienced with their different versions of Cyberpunk. But like Marvel, this live service thing and giving kind of like every character a battle pass, and I had said it, and I had done a state of play on it, and I had done a WTF episode, and which I believe you watched. I said it then, and I said it now. I said, irregardless of the big thing about the Marvel games is, especially like that, like Ultimate Alliance and stuff like that, we want characters to play as, and I'm grateful for the 6 you gave us. But you had nothing in the wings, and then we finally get Girl Hawkeye, we Kate Bishop, and it's still going to be a while before we see Spider-Man or Clint. Clint was supposed to have been out now, and he's not. And they lost like a ton of money, 56-something billion, whatever it was, and they lost 96% of their player base. So trying to and I've tried to matchmake recently. I don't know if I told you this. It was like 40 minutes before I could do anything. So nobody's playing, and I know that seems sad, but it's just the fact that they lost a lot of their player base on PC and a big chunk of it off the consoles. And Kate Bishop, to be honest with you, again, her story campaign, which follows suit with the rest, is fantastic. Their story is on point. She's very overpowered as a character. Like I'm like, God, I just slaughter shit at low levels. This is ridiculous. And the story is great, but then once the story is beaten, which only takes like an hour, a couple hours, you're like back to the live service. Everyone's got a battle pass. You got to level them up and level them up and level, and it's just like that grind is there. And even though they did do improvements with the end game, and now the hives, those big long drawn out things, are guaranteed epics and things like that, it just wasn't enough to keep that player base going, and it's a shame because I really
it's a great idea. And I like the episodic kind of content idea, and I don't even know the battle pass idea for every character. It's just, I don't know, it just kind of felt like Anthem all over again. Like it was a very solid mechanic, very solid gameplay. It felt good. You felt powerful in most of the right ways. There's a few minor complaints I have with some of that, but with a great story and one thing I hate about that game is I was anxious to kind of get into some of that stuff, but it warned you early on. Don't go into the that portion until you complete the story to avoid spoilers, right? So I'm kind of powering through the story to kind of get to some of that too. I mean,
that's what I did.
And it's like, man, that was the best part.
Yeah, I know. And the sad thing is not knowing this, because they didn't really let you know. Like I think I've told you, was I leveled my Thor to like 100 and something, and then I want to do next mission, and it's like, oh, your other heroes are not powerful enough; they're too low level. I'm like, really? My bots? The bots are just really my characters. So now I got to stop and go grind out my other characters, and that just is time consuming, and it's just like, do I really want to play the same couple of missions over and over and over and over? So it was just the live service aspects of that game was a huge mistake on their part. I think I would have much rather preferred, honest to God, much rather preferred, okay, no live service stuff, mostly story stuff, do the multiplayer stuff, let me roam around in some of these open maps. Hey, Spider-Man comes out, or let's say War Machine or some other character from, just charge me $2. I'd rather pay for the characters and give you your money that way than let me just throw out all this stuff, because the grind is so long now. And it's gotten a slightly better, but it's nothing, and it's a shame because that was a game that was really anticipated for 2020, and man, did they like. After I got done with the story, and then I started looking at the end game, I was like, this sucks. So it's like, I don't like this at all. And
and I don't know really what the right answer would have been. I mean, I think they didn't. I think because they put so much of the focus on the live aspect of it, and then they dropped the ball so big. If it would have just been a single player with some of that stuff added on, because I would say just release the single player and then do DLC characters and add this stuff as you go. But I think people would have nitpicked it for that, saying, well, we could have easily just put like a horde mode or something in or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's maybe fine the way it was, but I think all the focus was in the wrong areas.
Yeah.
And, people go in expecting this awesome live service hub experience, and then you got this bonus campaign too. But then that's the best part that you didn't really build up. Because if you look at every video when it came out, everybody was blown away by how good the story was.
Yeah,
they just weren't expected. They didn't even know there was a full campaign really there.
Yeah, they loved it. I loved it. I every time I got done with part of the story and there was the next part, I was like, man, I just can't wait. Can't wait. Oh, I unlocked Captain America. Oh my god! And then like at the end level where you're switching between the characters in this big battle, I was like, man. The only thing that was missing was the Avengers theme from the movie. That would have been like, oh my god, yeah. And then I got done with that story, and then I did the after campaign stories. Like, this is fantastic. And then I was like, man. It's like, well, man. I was like, that's not cool.
It's a great story. Now, I wouldn't say it was the best hero game of 2020, though.
No, I wouldn't say that. No. I don't think I would say that. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't. I know on the Switch, we had Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 came out, and that got some pretty decent reviews and it's a shame that it's a Nintendo exclusive, but, it's still, it was cool that we got another Marvel Open Alliance, irregardless of.
Okay, so I wasn't really that impressed with that game.
Okay.
It was okay. But it didn't feel like the old games. And
true, the different companies, Ravensoft, yeah.
I don't know. There was just a lot of things. Like, it felt like it was just a sequel in title only.
Yeah.
To me, it felt more like those mobile titles that came out.
Oh, well, there you have it. See, I hadn't played it, so.
What's that one goofy one they put out that they tried to... Remember you had to buy your character right off?
Oh,
it was like a port of a mobile one or something. You remember that?
Yeah, I'm trying to... Yeah, it's a couple years. I can't think of the name of it. It's been a while, so lots coming
It reminded me of that. And it's better than that. But
yeah,
I don't know. Because I loved Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2 so much.
Yeah, I actually, yeah.
And there were so many things that were missing from it. It just didn't really blow me away like that. But it's still a decent game.
So in 2020, what was Spider-Man, obviously, was huge.
For me, Miles Morales.
Miles Morales, yeah. That's a big title. And, it's funny, too, because that was a game that came out, and there had been a lot of so much positivity about that game. Angry Joe, everybody loved it. There's only been a couple detractors, just because it's like there's a lot of people who just, unfortunately, they want their Peter Parker. They want the red. They don't want somebody else. And in some ways, I get it. In other ways, I'm like, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's Spider-Man. You had to enter the Spider-Verse, and that movie was huge. There's a lot of different variations on Spider-Mans here and there. I don't know. Yeah, I think you owned it because you're a big Spider-Man fan. I had the Shattered Dimensions where you had the Noir Spider-Man and you had the two. I loved that game. I thought that was a fantastic game. I love the different types of Spider-Man. So I'm on board for other characters taking the mantle. So.
Yeah, well, there's such a... I mean, Spider-Man's been around forever. Mm-hmm. There's such a lore there. There's all the different, 2099, there's the noir, there's all those different things. Mm-hmm. They all have their place. Most of those it is still kind of, except for 2099, based on Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And, I'm a big Spider-Man fan.
Oh, yeah.
Have been for a long time. First tattoo was Spider-Man,
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you remember that too.
I remember that too. I remember when you got it, you came home, you were like, I said, how was it? You're like, it was horrible. Yeah. But no, and I'm jealous because you get good Spider-Man games and I can't get a good Thor game to save my life.
Yeah. Well, Thor was awesome in Avengers though.
Yes, actually, and the best Thor game they ever produced, as a matter of fact, was on the Wii. So I don't even want to go, what?
But with Spider-Man, I'm telling you, when Miles first came out, because I was talking with my wife about this when Miles came out. Actually, I followed the comics at that time, and I remember when he came out as a comic book character, and it was kind of odd, and I was kind of like, what's this? What are they trying to do now? You know, and it
Yeah.
was very much not to scoff at equal rights and like racial movements and things, but it was around kind of that time where it almost felt like, okay, are they just trying to make a non-white version of
Spider-Man. Yeah.
something like that, you know? But I gave it a chance. I read it, and Miles is such a great character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, he really is. I think for the people who would give him a chance, who are, Peter Parker purists,
Mm-hmm.
really great character, really awesome alternative. I like a lot of the, I don't know what you really want to call it, but, a lot of the relationships, I guess, with other characters.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I was really happy. Like, Into the Spider-Verse came out. That was an excellent movie. And I'm just happy that he did get his own game, because it is a great character.
Yeah.
And I think, for people that would give him a fair shot, they would kind of find that love in there, too. But,
well, it's nice because it wasn't like... It was nice that they didn't say, well, we're going to remaster Spider-Man that came out 2 years ago and put it on PS5. Well, no, it's only 2 years old. Do you really need to... You really need to remaster? Yeah, they did, but you know what I mean. It's nice that Miles Morales... They showcased him and gave him his own game, and that I think is important, because they, you had a billion Spider-Man
game,
yeah, but we had like a
it's
billion.
It's not as long.
Yeah,
but, it's great within its own right, and it made a lot of improvements off of
Spider-Man 2018.
Spider-Man, yeah.
But we were talking about the Marvel Avengers live service. I want to touch real brief on this. As you know, I really, really got into Anthem, and this year was supposed to be the year, or last year was supposed to be the year, right around November is what they were shooting for the big reboot, relaunch, re-ever, like Destiny did and other games have done in the past, of that game. BioWare and EA went completely dark, and nothing happened. And there's nothing has come up of... The only thing that was recently said right before the end of last year was, we're still devoted into changing whatever we were doing with Anthem, but they have gone so completely dark, and that's a live service game. I was like, man, because I still periodically play it. There's not many people playing, but because I still love the flying and the combat. And I'm still trying to max out my javelins and stuff. But it's another live service game that, when it came out, it floundered, and then they update hundreds of updates later, and then this last year was supposed to be the reboot, where they put the stuff back in, or whatever they're going to do, and let's relaunch it, and let's do this, and they just never did. And it's just gone dark. Nobody knows anything, and I'm kind of like, man, why nothing, and it's really strange, considering that BioWare, they're working on the Mass Effect, remaster, and they're also, which I think is great, and they're also, working on Dragon Age, the next Dragon Age. So it's like, where you all promised this Anthem thing and it didn't come out. So again, in 2020, we have yet, another studio that made this big announcement, big promise, and just nothing. And it's just like, man, and it seems to be in 2020, there was a lot of companies, Ubisoft and Activision with their layoffs, and Blizzard, and companies that were normally kind of untouchable, or at least looked upon with great favor, Bethesda included, that just really lost a lot of their, like, where people are like, well, F those companies, because they've lost our confidence. And 2020 was bad for that. It was bad.
And everybody says that they understand, and they mentioned COVID.
Yeah.
And it's like, I understand, because of COVID, but then at the same time this, but, I hate giving as much, excuse to that as that I'm about to, but it probably is a lot of that, really. I mean, you got, whether it's mandatory or not, just a lot of work environments were changing, and if you have a team of hundreds of people and all of a sudden you're sitting to work from home, that dynamic's different. the way game development's so intertwined with each department. You go
True.
back and forth, and you tinker, and you do. With some of these companies that have such a great track record, I don't see how that does not affect the way they work.
Yeah.
So,
No, I agree.
Maybe it's just that. Right?
I think
I'd like to think it's that, and not some of these companies just tanking all.
I know pre-pandemic, the big thing with Activision was their CEO Bobby Kotick and others, taking these big payoffs and bonuses and then laying off a bunch of employees, which was like, okay, why would you take that? If you had a good fiscal year, why? And I thought that was at the beginning of the year. And then, of course, Blizzard last year, they were like, Diablo Immortal, this mobile game with a lot of microtransactions, and they got booed out of the building. And then, like, people didn't want that. And then the Blizzard messed up Warcraft Reforged so bad and flat out, like, as soon as, like, the remaster was... The original was better than the remaster, and the stories that came out then, where it's like, if you bought the new one, it upgraded the old one, and you could never play. They had to come out with a big apology, and we're sorry, and it was like, it seemed like, I remember in 2020, I'm like, man, there's a lot of companies apologizing for a lot of stuff, it's like, and then when I was touching base about Ubisoft, it was like, Ubisoft's Tom Clancy's Breakpoint came out. I really liked the game. And now a lot of people didn't. I liked it because I like looter shooters. And the open world was interesting. And I loved the shooting. And I liked the fact it didn't matter how powerful something was. If I got a good headshot in them, they were dead. So there was tactics. And now they did this, months later, a big update where they made it where you can play it more like Wildlands. So it's more tactical. There's no loot. You just get weapons. And you can do all these cool settings, and the game is really like different and changed now in many ways. I still play it more like how the game came out because I like that, but that game lost a lot of money for them, and they lost money on that game and a couple other releases, and it was like, man, they had to push back some titles until this year. There's like 3 that they were like, okay, we're gonna have to wait to put them out because we lost money, because their shareholders and stuff were like, you are gonna have to stop trying to put stuff out so fast and kind of give them the business in. And Ubisoft, on top of all that, their Division 2, which it came out the year prior, it didn't tank in sales, but they lost a lot of their player base this year. Some of them came back for their expansion, but not many people bought the expansion, so they lost money on that. And then all that stuff came out with different people, with the sexual harassment, and people, go ahead and resign, and they're letting people kind of go before they could get anything drawn up against them. And a lot of stuff came out to be factual, and I was like, man, Ubisoft, they had a rough year last year. Yeah. There was they had 3 games.
So much of
I don't
that's
remember.
Tricky too. Yeah. And a lot of it really plays into a lot of this gaming culture that we talked about before. Is it's very difficult for anybody to try anything new, because if it's just not just the right thing, you get torn apart.
This is true.
And then and then we have all this COVID stuff, and then the game industry is a lot. It's like Hollywood in a sense, right? You got to put this date out there, and you're working towards that date. And half the time, pre-pandemic stuff, they could barely even make those dates anyway.
Yeah.
So, you get all these weird changes just the way everybody's working, and then of course the normal crooked stuff or bad decisions that happen. So, it doesn't surprise me that so many things are having so many struggles and just weirdness about the industry, And but the biggest problem though is the expectations from everybody's not changed, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Still expect things to just be perfect, which it never is anyway.
No.
Then you got these big console launches, which is, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is, but it's a very difficult time for a lot of people to be coming through, these major companies, some bad decisions, and then dealing with COVID, and then the next gen systems launching at the same time.
Yeah, because they launched just a couple months ago. Yeah, in 2020 of all things, which was a weird time because even though people were gouging them and then doing the bot buying and all that stuff, and they were the big item, last year. The interesting thing is, numbers telling they sold huge, but not like previous systems, only because a lot of people just, the pandemic affected them financially, and so they couldn't just be like, let's rush out and get the system. They just, I mean, I know a lot sold, but they, so that hurt them. It didn't hurt them. They made money. It's just, it was different. And I think it's great that they launched new systems. They could have not and held back until this year and been like, let's just wait till next year. Let's get over this year and let's. But it was before Christmas. They were like, maybe we'll put them out, try to get people's minds off the terrible year, and they can buy these systems, which were, I mean, in all hindsight and for the power, very reasonably priced, in my opinion. And the fact that they were like, hey, you know what? And you're not at a loss. Hey, you can play your old games on there. It's great. We didn't try to not do that. And I think it's good that a lot of the games got the free upgrade to the PS5 version. Like, there's a ton. And the fact that they added PS5 games to 5's PS Plus, and like Sony did good, Microsoft did good, doing the Game Pass and doing stuff. So it's kind of interesting to say, irregardless of the pandemic and a lot of the stuff, and we talked about with the toxic community, which I can't deal with. I just don't understand what people want. The fact that they still went in, the fact that they still released the systems and put them out there and said, hey, it's cool. And then the fact that both companies also said, hey, we're not just giving up on the old systems. We're still going to be putting stuff out on it. So don't fret on that. You'll be able to play your Valhalla. You'll be able to play your Far Cry 6. You'll be able to play a lot of titles because we're still going to support them because there's such a huge player base for those that couldn't get the new systems, and I think that's great.
It's a very soft upgrade, I think, for either system.
Yeah.
And for the first time, at least in the PlayStation world, Xbox did it the last generation, but you can get the new system and play with people on the previous system.
Yeah, which is great. Yeah.
And then you got, and it, it reminds me of the time like when Xbox 360 came out. You get, and I guess they did it for PS4 too and stuff like that. But games would come out and it's on both systems still.
Yes. Yeah. Which is great. Yeah.
And then they did a lot of the free upgrades to that stuff. So a lot of stuff is done right, but yeah, I mean, there's really very, very few next gen exclusives. Sure, I mean, Demon's Souls is probably one of, if not the only one.
Well, and 2020, you talked about that. This is one of your reasoning for one of the reasons, maybe not all entirely, but part of the reasons for buying Xbox Series X is big news. 2020, Microsoft bought up Bethesda, so that's huge, because even though they haven't said, oh no, we're only going to put the Elder Scrolls or whatever, Starfield, that's huge. That's because that's insane that they did that. Now, some people contributed to the failure of Fallout 76, and that Bethesda owed money and they weren't anywhere near going out of business, but that game cost them a lot of money and failed on a lot of ways, even though the game's pretty decent now just because of the NPCs and things they added. But that's again what happened. Hey, Fallout's great in 2020. Well, 2 years ago it sucked. So it's like you took them 2 years. So the point is that that's another thing that you saw. That acquisition by Microsoft in 2020 was a big gaming story. I remember in the morning it's it's on Yahoo. Oh shit, it's on every internet news, and that's huge, and that made people, because no one ever came out and said, because of that you'll never be able to play Elder Scrolls on PlayStation. They just said, we'll look at every game as it comes out.
Yeah, the long-term impact of that's still remaining to be seen.
Yes,
but,
yes.
It's foolish to think that it won't have an impact, because it will.
No, it absolutely will.
There will be something that's not going to be on PlayStation.
Oh,
whether it's Starfield or a new Doom or a new Elder Scrolls. And, Bethesda is one of my favorite publishers.
Because they're in bed with ID,
Ubisoft,
and they're in bed with other people, yeah.
Yeah, it's just some of my favorite games. So, yeah, I mean, as soon as they announced that, I just went ahead and planned on getting an Xbox as well. So,
Just in case.
Which, worked out for me anyway, because I didn't get an Xbox One. So there's a lot of those titles that I can kind of go back and touch on.
And that's good, because, Master Chief Collection, get back into Halo and things like that.
And, I don't know... See, I didn't brush up on that so much, but they've continued to add things to that Master Chief Collection, and I know they added a lot to it last year alone, but that's one of the greatest kind of remaster type of collections out there, I think. Yeah,
I mean, I know it launched kind of funky, but now it's, again... And, that's the other thing that I kind of took away in 2020, the year in review, talking about this, was there was a lot of games that, and not all of them, but a handful of them that launched a year ago or even 2 years ago just went so much better. I mean, even, and it's nice to see that, like a game like, 76, I go back and play it, and I'm like, wow, there's NPCs, now there's this, now there's that, and there's this thing, and there's this, and there's that, and you're like, I'm playing it now, and it's like, it's great. It's like, the game feels like I'm playing Fallout 4, but online, and that's great. That was all we really wanted in the first place, right? Like a Fallout to play on, but that's good. And then we, of course, 2020 saw No Man's Sky turned into No Man's Sky Beyond, and it's just that game's insane, and it's nice to see. We did see some in 2020 games that launched really rough and bare bones turn into very good and playable games. I even say that about 76. I played it a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, man, I found myself playing it for like a couple hours, 2-3 hours. I'm like, man, this is literally like playing, this is exactly what I was wanting. And so there was like people on the server too. It was like 20 people. So I was like, well, that's not a lot, but in Fallout 76 it is. So I was like, this is great. So it's nice to see a couple of those games that you kind of bounce back and it's still going. But I know with that acquisition from Microsoft, I know that 76 financially failed for that company. And I'm not saying that we need to be bought out, but I know with the other projects coming up, that takes a lot of money. And I don't know if Bethesda they probably had the money, but if they had it, let's say they put out Starfield and it failed, then it really would have hurt their, the chances of. So I think pairing with Microsoft helps. Yeah,
it would definitely help. I mean, Microsoft bankroll is ginormous, so
they don't really run out of money.
I don't really know the financial details of Bethesda. I think they're okay.
Yeah,
but I really think, if my opinion on it, I really think it was about Microsoft showing that it's not pulling any punches this time around.
I think so.
Spencer, he talked about that specifically, saying how, of course he wasn't really pulling the strings back then, but basically the Xbox One sucked and it was terrible kind of launch, and they didn't really support it as well, and it just the games division for Microsoft wasn't taken. They didn't put as much focus on it as they should have. And his take was, you can either just stop making games, or you can really try to just go all in.
Yeah.
To where people take it seriously again. So I think it was more about getting more, even though it's kind of a third party, it's now first party. Getting more first party studios on board. And just really kind of saying, hey, okay, this new Xbox, it's a great machine, but we got the software now to, help support it. And then another big part is the new Game Pass they launched.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that is getting day one content for that. And, that's a big system seller kind of thing.
I think they doubled down. Xbox One's a good system. It's a really good system, but before it came out, they're talking about the DRM and all the other stuff that they came out, and people are like, fuck that, I don't want to do that. So it's nice to see them doubling down. And Phil is smart. He's a businessman, and I think he appreciates what the game side of thing does, because Sony kind of like the 360 kind of dominated the year, it's 7-8 years, and Sony, even though PS3 had the free network, but Sony was marred in like getting DDoS attacked, and their network went down for months, and like they just did not have that same player base, even though there was a lot of systems sold. 360 was kind of running the show, and then last year, we saw, Sony really took that reins and ran with the PS4, and just last year really crushed it and knocked it out of the park. Now, to be fair, Nintendo put the Switch out 4 years, and it consistently in 2020 it was huge. Like the Switch was huge, and people bought the shit out of those. You could not, long before Christmas, the GameStops and stuff were already out of them. And strangely enough, the Switch, and this is weird because Desiree had bought me a Wii U. The GameStops and game exchanges were selling out of all the Wii U stuff. It was like, that's weird. And it's just because people were like, that's also kind of like it's like the precursor to the Switch, and people were like, all of a sudden nostalgia for it, which is odd since it was 2013 when it came out. So I was sitting there thinking, like, when I was playing my Switch, my Wii U a couple days ago, I was going like, man, this really was a tremendous system. And I was like, I can see the evolution from Wii U to Switch, and I'm like, and the Switch was big in 2020, really big. A lot of stuff came out on it that I think people were like, wow, you can get Doom, and I can get this, and just unexpected stuff. Plus, Nintendo decided to lax on all of their censorship, and Sony in 2020 was like, we got to censor everything. The only game they really didn't was Cyberpunk, but then they kind of, some stuff got patched, and even though there's stuff there, it's a little different, and you can't walk around with your stuff hanging out, but whatever. But the point is, why would you? But I'm just saying, but Sony in 2020 was really, because they had so many systems and so many kids were playing them, they really doubled down on their censorship of about everything. Almost every anime game was censored. Devil May Cry 5 was censored. A lot of stuff was censored. Nintendo, which normally is about that, said, nah, we don't care. It was like the complete opposite you would expect from that company. But Nintendo was like, we're going to not do that. We're going to be a force to reckon with. So kudos to Nintendo to carve a little bit of that money out of them, for the Switch, which is amazing in 2020.
I think starting with the GameCube, they really just kind of started going their own way and doing their own thing, and they've been just about doing their own thing ever since. And
pretty much,
it's kind of the best thing they can do. Most people have the Switch as a secondary system, so whatever they're doing is working. If you want Nintendo stuff, you got to be on Nintendo, and there's very few, I guess, kind of hardcore style games that are exclusive to that.
True.
So, it helps, I think, because you're really about it for some of those more casual experiences.
Well, and you had put it best to me a number of years ago. You said there's just nothing like playing a Nintendo game, a Nintendo system. There's nothing quite like it. Their quality, the Mario Maker thing where you make your Mario levels, that's really cool. Smash Brothers, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was considered one of the best RPG open world games. It gets lumped in there with Skyrim and stuff now. So that first party stuff was pretty amazing, and you had a lot of the, I can play Diablo, I can play Doom, I can play a lot of stuff that you're seeing and you would not normally see that on their systems. And so I think the Switch in 2020,
but they're still good.
And I think the Switch in 2020 was huge, and even though it's been out for 4 years, it carved a really nice little swath into the game market. And kudos for Nintendo to do their own thing for so long, and then quietly put out something that they were like, oh shit. It was like, but if you ever think about Nintendo, they've always been on the forefront. They invented that motion control technology, way back with the Power Glove, and then 20 years later the Wii comes out, or whatever, 25, and that was literally one of the all-time selling systems, and the Wii, that motion control. And then they said, okay, well, we're going to get away from that, and we did the Wii U, and we're going to do the screen and the more kind of pseudo portability with all this functionality. and it didn't sell real well because like the third parties didn't come on board. Even though there was, believe it or not, North America, there was 752 titles released for the system, which is kind of crazy. You don't ever even know that many. But then the Switch comes out and it just blew up, and people, because they hadn't put out anything since 2013. So, and then 2020, literally last year, I remember it was switch. You know, prior to going to my new job at when I was at Walmart, it's just switch. People were just all about it, and the fact that they put out like the Nintendo Switch controllers, but they were the GameCube controller, but it was like, it's just, yeah, it was really cool. So again, you had, Nintendo was a force to be reckoned with last year for sure. I know there was a lot, and the thing is, you didn't hear a lot of heat coming from them. It wasn't like, because again, one of the things that it's always kind of been like, hey, Microsoft versus Sony, but Nintendo's like, yeah, well, we're over here and we're still like kicking ass. So I'm very happy for Nintendo to be able to do that and still have a voice in the gaming industry, because they deserve it. They've been around for a long time. They single-handedly saved the game industry, and if it wasn't for Nintendo 64, you know, we wouldn't have True Analog. We wouldn't have some of those games. I've talked about that in the past, about how DMA.
Well, so much of that stuff, you know, just like the innovations that we made, and like just a lot of that stuff, even if somebody doesn't directly copy them, you know, it's really paved the way for a lot of innovation for other things. You know, because of the Wii, I think we seen a strive for like PlayStation VR, right?
Yeah. People were like, hey, that stuff works.
Or, you know, so yeah, it's just I love that they're there and doing their own thing, and they'll just always be alongside these other giants.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they chose to separate themselves, because, you know, we don't really need three.
Duking it out. Yeah, because
it was a very smart decision to kind of take as a secondary. I mean, there's people that's their main thing, and that is their first console, but you know what I mean. It's just a different. It's not a hardcore gaming platform and system. You know, it's more about the casual experiences, the Nintendo experiences, the indie experiences. It's one of the best systems for indie games.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They put out everything.
Tons every week of just indie titles that are like $2, $3.
Yeah, and that used to be the 360.
Yeah. And one of their big releases for this year is that Mario 3D All Stars, by the way. Yeah. I've seen on that. That's huge. You know, 2020 was such an interesting year because there was a lot of highs and lows. At the beginning of the year, there was a lot of layoffs and payoffs and the layoffs and payoffs with the big CEOs getting money and this and that. You had promises from game companies that weren't kept. You had, you know, some big flops. We already talked about Cyberpunk 2077. We did over an hour video on it, and I think me and you, people watched it. I know they did, and that's another one, that huge thing you talked about, expectations. I mean, we can't talk about 2020 without at least, we already talked about it. So guys, if you're listening and watch this, you can go back and check out Gaming Roundtable with Posthuman Guy on Cyberpunk 2077, and we talked about that, and then that same night they patched it. It was funny. We're on version 1.05. My version runs so good now, and this is, again, couple weeks in, or 2-3 weeks later now. It's fantastic, but you know, it's to say that we already touched base on that, but I will mention it for a couple minutes in 20, because that was the really big title that people waited for, and again, that hype was there. And to be honest and to be frank, yeah, they may have done some things. CD Projekt Red was like, well, we won't let you see anything but the PC version, and we're not going to show you footage. And they came out and apologized for that. And I don't know. I mean, an apology is not necessarily an admittance of guilt. It's just I think, at the best interest for them was, we got to show the best thing running. And to be fair to all those who were just so butthurt about it, and we talked about that in the video, it's like, it really,
boils down to it just didn't run good on some old ass hardware, and if you expected it to, you're no, you know, it's like so. But I want to talk a little bit about it because that game, irregardless of any of the problems that are out there, the game is fantastic. And you were talking about to me before the video what to look forward to in 2021. Cyberpunk is adding an online that's going to be kind of like GTA Online. We get Cyberpunk Online. That's coming this year. I know they'll make it, and then we can all get on there and play together. That's going to be awesome. But before, that's something that I'm looking forward to. Well, it may not do well, but I'm looking forward to it.
I don't know. You know, I'm very picky with what games I really enjoy online for the most part. And it's because of a lot of these failures and a lot of just kind of half in, half out type of thing. So, you know, I'm definitely curious on what they do. I'm probably just more excited about just continuing to see them make everybody's experience worthwhile. You know, doing like the true next gen versions of it.
Yes,
so I can kind of see some of those better enhancements. You know, I'm curious to see because they've already talked about their 2021 roadmap for DLC, and I think their plan now is to put a lot of the original cut content back in. They wanna be a. I've heard it numerous times. You know, I think they want to kind of be that No Man's Sky redemption story.
Yeah, I tell you what, we're into. Yeah,
I know it's the same thing, but. You know, it already is such a great game. It's still one of my favorite games that came out last year.
No, I love it.
Regardless of the hype and the difficulty, and you know, I'll keep playing it till I, you know, kind of feel done with it. But
yeah, no, I'm with you on that, and it's, you know, I wanted to touch base on it because it was one of the last big titles released of last year, and I was excited for it. Everybody was, and yes, there were some people who had worse issues than even I did. I don't know why I didn't experience that bad. It crashed a lot, but that was, other than that, it was, and a couple texture things. I never really experienced, like, you know, anything else outside of, I just didn't. And I don't know, other people to a lesser extent or more experience different things on their old hardware, but, you know, I give CD Projekt Red a lot of, you know, respect, because when things came out, they didn't try to not say anything. They didn't try to downplay anything. Said, yeah, this is, we didn't allow this, and we didn't do this, and we're committed to. And then, you know, here's a patch, and then 2 days, oh, here's another patch, and next week, oh, here's 2 more like they didn't wait, because a lot of these other games that had came out that failed or whatever, it took forever for them to patch it. You know, they were just dragging their tails, and CD Projekt Red did not. They were like, nope, here's a patch, here's a patch, here's a patch, here's a patch, and it was like, wow, 5 patches later.
Patch like, yeah, and 10 times in a month.
Yeah, so I mean, that's tremendous for them, and you got to respect the fact that they admitted, hey, we messed up some. You know, we don't want to lose your fan base. We don't want to lose, you know, you all don't. I mean, we're sorry that it happened, but we're committed. And even though they said, irregardless of the lost money, we're still going to do what we have to do to make the game great. So I think, but you know, I tell you what. Emotionally invested. You know, spoiler alert coming up, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I probably won't spoil it, but there's a death in the game that happens, and I was like devastated. And it happens like pretty early on. I was like, no! And I just was like, now the game's got me, because now I'm like emotionally invested in the game, and I was like, oh my god, what? And I was like, and the last time I felt that was playing Mass Effect, and that to me spoke to me. You know, Witcher 3 had some amazing moments, but I was never like on that level. And Cyberpunk has brought that emotional response out of me, and I'm like, oh my god. And it's just because it was so well voice acted, and it was so, the intrigue behind it, and then it's just, it is, I don't care what anybody says, and you can bitch, piss, and moan about yours. Oh, I got a bug, or it did. Look past that, because that game in 2020, I don't care and maybe you won't like what I'm about to say, but it is outside of that because they have patched it. It runs great. It's one of the best games that came out last year. I've said it. Shoot me, I said it. So you can email me at jimprofit275@gmail.com with your hate. I won't read it. I will delete it. So,
okay, so aside from what we've talked about and everything, like, and it doesn't have to be like a true, top list, because I hate those kind of top lists.
Yeah.
Name off like kind of 3 of your favorite games that came out last year.
Oh God, and Cyberpunk's one of them. I want to throw that out there because I thought it was amazing. I still think the game's amazing because it is, yes, it's first person, and yes, it's this and that, and yes, it's a little bit of Deus Ex, and yes, it's a little bit of this, and a little bit of Remember Me, and a little bit. It's just, that game is great. I love it, and it's one of the 3 games that I was like, I looked past any problems I had with it, and just was like, wow, this is a really stylish, great game. That was one of my favorite games that came out last year. God, there was a lot released last year that I think about. I think about it. I would love to put Marvel's Avengers on there, and I can't. I love the story, but as far as everything else, it's like I would love to say, yeah, that was one of my favorite games. It's not, because I do still play it, but I don't. It's kind of, I treat it like I treated Fallout 76 when it first came out. I play it, I beat the campaign, and now I play it in small doses. I'll play a couple missions, gain a couple levels, and then I'm done. I turn it off. I don't want to do no more, because I know if I do, I'm going to be sitting there going like, this is just some repetitive BS. I don't want to do it. So I'm not putting that on the list because I just can't.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll give you a minute to think, and I'll talk about a couple of my favorites here. So, Doom Eternal, actually.
See, I didn't get to play that or buy that one, so I've been wanting to, but yeah.
Now, I have one major complaint though, and that is there's too much platforming in it.
Yeah, really, I've heard people say that.
I don't mind some of the platforming. I don't mind it for a bit, but it gets way extreme, I think, and it really breaks up just that kind of, I don't know, just the frantic, just go that you want from Doom. It breaks it up too much, I think. But that aside, it's a great sequel. It's a great game. So that was one of my favorites. I haven't played through the DLC, but they did release DLC for it. Last of Us 2 is without a doubt probably my favorite game of last year.
See, I didn't get to play that one either. I did not buy that one. Yeah.
As far as the overall experience, I mean, the story was excellent. There was, I think a few things that I won't say anything, for spoiler reasons, I guess, if you haven't played it. But, there's a few things that kind of rub some people the wrong way. But, it's one of those things, again, like if you just kind of go in it and you just experience it for what it is, it's so impactful, and it's one of my favorite games of all time, I think.
Yes.
Well, one of my favorite series of all time. And it was definitely, I don't know, it was one of those games I didn't think you needed a sequel to.
Yes.
I think a lot of people felt that way, but after playing it, I mean, it's great, and a truly great sequel, and again, one of my favorite games last year.
I wish I would have picked that up. I didn't, and again, it's one of those things. I was like, at the time, I don't think it was a money thing. It's not that I disliked it, because that's not the case. I just didn't pick it up. So what I saw of it, and I'm like, the first game was so good. I definitely would like to get, I would like to have gotten the new one for sure, and I will get it at some point. I'll probably wait till it's, we got a sale or something along that line. So, and then I'll probably pick it up then. I think that would probably be the best bet. I mean, not that I don't think it's not worth the $60 price tag. I just think it's a game that, I like picking up the stuff on sale, and
it'd be. I mean, at one point I think it was quite a bit off during this holiday season, but yeah, to continue to have sales, and it's one of those ones you definitely want to add to your your list at some point to play through.
And the third game, what do you got on the third game?
See, I would say Miles, but we did kind of talk about that already.
Yes.
So, the third one, might have to think a bit on that one. I do like that Immortal Realms a lot. I love the concept of that for sure.
Yeah, Immortal Realms. Yeah.
Watchdogs Legion was great.
Yes, I'm gonna say that's definitely on my list because I love that game. If I turned it on right now, I'd be walking around. I loved the idea when I first heard about like recruit anybody. Oh, come on. I was literally like, I don't know how that's going to work. And then I was like, this is great. I love the idea of recruiting somebody, doing a mission for them, and if something happens to them, or you can really. And I loved that game. It's a great open world game. It's probably one, I'm going to have to definitely say that's on the list along with my top 3. It was definitely Watchdogs Legions. I love the first 2, but man, the third one is excellent. It's just really good.
Yeah. Now, there are some games that I think are great, but I didn't include them in the list because I haven't played through them. But,
yes.
Yeah, so I kind of have a separate list of things that I want to play that came out in 2020, but I haven't set aside enough time to dedicate. One is The Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah,
so,
I didn't get to play that, and that's one that I would love to play. Yes.
Yeah, so I have that one. I have it ready, but I really try to take my time as far as not playing too many games at the same time. So once I feel like I'm ready to take a break from Cyberpunk, I'll probably get into that one.
Yeah.
But that's one. That Final Fantasy Remake is definitely on my list. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is on there. But they keep churning those out, and I never have enough time to play them. So
yeah,
we'll see. I do really want to check out the Star Wars Squadrons, though. That was a cool release.
Yes, that was recently on sale, and it stays in first person. It's VR compatible. It's got really good reviews, so I'm definitely have to say that's one that I would like to own as well.
I know what's going to be on your list.
What's that?
Rebel Galaxy. Outlaw.
Yes, I'm going to have to say absolutely. And I'm torn because I originally was going to say Monster Hunter World Iceborne, but that's an expansion. So I mean, it does change some of the gameplay and stuff, but it's still more or less the same game.
2020.
That came out in 2020, in the beginning of the year. Then there was a lot. Right now, there's over 3,100 titles in the PS4, and there was a lot that was released in 2020. Stuff like Neo 2 came out in 2020, and Neo 2, if you like your Souls, it's an amazing game. I've recently picked it up at a Game Exchange for $9 when it was selling everywhere for $40. So I don't know why they're so cheap, but that game is tremendous. We also had, a lot of stuff that had came out in the different months. Persona 5 Royale came out. We had, Resident Evil 3. Obviously, we talked about that. There's a lot of different games that came out, but yes, if you get into 2020 in gaming, I had to say Rebel Galaxy Outlaw was released in August, and then it finally came out, and it came out without I'd have to say not much in the way of fanfare or anything. I just remember it was Tuesday night, and I was like, oh crap, that's out, and I immediately on the spot bought it, no questions asked. That game, I loved the first game. The first game was excellent. I always told people, if you don't like No Man's Sky's procedural universe, you'll love Rebel Galaxy's procedural universe, because it brings back that kind of old school, almost Wing Commander vibe. Outlaw really does, but Outlaw has an almost GTA vibe with its radio stations and playing pool and the missions and the proceed. And even though there's a lot of galaxies to explore, they did get rid of the procedural thing because they wanted to focus more on the creation of the different worlds and people. But I love Outlaw. Outlaw is probably on my list because that game, you could spend hours in that game going back and forth, earning stuff, doing stuff. It's got a good story on top of the fact that you get to, the first game, this is a prequel, so you get to figure out your Aunt Juno and who she is. And the first game, she's older, And this one, she's like in her late 30s, you know, maybe early 40s, and you get to see her story, and you get to run into people that how she came to be, and it's just it's an excellent game, and I'm very happy that they put it out. And when I played it, I was like, oh, this is like playing the first one, but just way better. And I love that game, Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, because I love the space stuff. That game, obviously, like I said, I love the Cyberpunk. It's just right up my alley because, you know, I've been a Deus Ex fan forever. And it's like, and then you have, you know, those games, and then the, what was the other one I just talked about? Crap, my brain farted. It was, there was so much that came out. But yeah, for the top three for me definitely has to be that Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, for sure. And, Cyberpunk 2077. And what was the other one that I had just talked about? It was and there was some stuff. I'm trying to remember what I just said. You get into tangents, people.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard to remember everything we talked about because there's a lot that came out on this year. But those, the games there was a lot. When I'm looking at the list now, and I'm like, wow, there was ridiculous amount of games that came out, and I really enjoyed. I had to
do a real top three, like include just anything we talked about. To name them off, would be Last of Us 2, Cyberpunk, and Miles. I think that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, mine would definitely be. Mine would definitely, like I said, Cyberpunk. I just, again, regardless of how people feel about it, it was excellent. Love it. Love Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, and yeah, I do love the Monster Hunter Iceborne game, but I can't include it because it really is just an expansion. I don't know. They consider it like like a new IP, but it's not. It's literally an expansion. So I can't say that it is.
Mortal Kombat Aftermath that came out this past year.
Yes, it did. That Mortal Kombat Aftermath came out with extra story and new stuff.
I think it's the first fighting game expansion on that level. I'm pretty sure.
And it was Watchdogs Legion. That's right. Watchdogs Legion. Yeah, was that game was fantastic. And there's so much that did come out that was it would be hard to narrow down a 10. Because we did have your games like Borderlands 3 and other stuff that came out, but it's hard to keep track because unlike yesteryear, and we've discussed this, is when stuff used to just come out at the end of the year, they put out stuff good every month. So it's like
it's very hard to remember what almost forgot about Doom Eternal.
Yeah, and it's just because there's so much that comes out. One of the games that we haven't talked about for 2020, and we discussed this before we made the video, was Warzone, Call of Duty Warzone, the free-to-play battle royale kind of game. And it's funny how Blackout mode in Black Ops 4, while I've played it and it's fun, but it didn't. Warzone is different in different ways, and they improved upon that formula, and Warzone is huge. And then Modern Warfare came out, and that just, people loved the campaign. It was like trying to get back to a COD back, and not trying to like completely let's recapture what the old games did, but let's try to get away from all that silliness. Yeah. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, everyone I know that has played it has never, like, I had people say, yeah, I played World War II and it was fine, but it was, and then, I didn't really care for it. Black Ops 4 was okay. Still a lot of that weird future stuff and different things and specialties, and then the hero stuff, and then it was like, but everyone that played Modern Warfare was like, this game is fantastic. Like, they just love what they've done with it.
It's technically a 2019, but the Warzone, I would count it just because it's like.
Well, I thought Modern Warfare came out in last year, but maybe.
I think it was August 2019. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you might be right about this. See, that's the problem.
Or November. Sorry,
November. Trying to figure out. Yeah, trying to figure out like when stuff comes out. It's some of those blur, like you said. Because I could have swore that was not 19, but I could be, I could be.
Yeah, Call of Duty's always October, November, right?
Yeah, typically, yeah.
Year.
So it's usually.
So it would have been would have been 2019. But you know, they did really pour.
Yeah, it was 2019. Yes, it was. You're right about that. So let's skip.
I mean, it is worth mentioning because it's great. I mean, it's still a great game, even with the launch of, you know, the new Cold War. There's a lot of things about Modern Warfare that I still prefer.
Yeah.
It was a very solid kind of, not slimmed down in a bad way, but to me, it kept all the important stuff, and it was like a return to serious form style of game that Modern Warfare was. So
yeah.
It's still worth playing in 2020.
Yeah.
And Warzone's definitely cool, like you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't really care so much for Battle Royale games, even though I like the concept. But me and my son, we do play Plunder mode a lot, and I like it. It's fun.
Yeah. You know, and the funny thing is when I think about like 2020 and gaming and how much came out, one of the things that came out last year too, which I was very happy about, like really happy about, was the fact that they finally completed the Darksiders saga. They put out Darksiders Genesis, and it was a different perspective, almost Diablo-like, but it wasn't like Diablo. It was like playing Darksiders with a little bit of loot, but it was great that they finally finished the series, and that was a long time coming. And I loved Darksiders, the first one. I loved the second one. The third one I got for free, that took a lot of cues from Dark Souls, and which I was gladly well prepared for from playing the other ones. I don't think it's as difficult, but it does take a lot of cues from that. And then, of course, they made Genesis, which you play as finally the Fourth Horseman Strife, but you can switch to War when you want it, or you can co-op. And 2020 saw the completion of that series, which, and again, Warmaster had came out. I mean, Darksiders 1 had came out years ago, so it was nice to see. Again, THQ Nordic's a publisher that just bought up so much IP and just said, we're going to finish it, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. And it was nice. It was so nice to see that. You know, that was pretty tremendous. And, you know, there was a lot that just was released, and we've seen a lot of good games. If Dynasty Warriors fans, yeah, I got Warriors of Orochi 4, you know, came out, and that was great. Hunt Showdown I played for weeks. You know, the new, you know, you had remasters of Kingdom Hearts. There was so much for people to play, and so much for people to go through, or even with, like you said, with the older games remastered, they didn't get to play it when they came out. Now they can play the best version of that. You know what I mean? So it was really nice. It was really nice to see that, and there was just a lot released last year, and not all good, obviously.
Struggle. There was a lot of letdowns, yeah, but it was still a great year in gaming for lots of reasons. So.
Oh, absolutely. Now, let's what are you, my friend, what are you looking forward to in 2021 as far as, I mean, I already touched base. I am looking forward to Cyberpunk Online, but what are you looking forward to? I mean, you have the new systems, obviously, and there's a ton of stuff announced for them. Lots of new IP, some sequels, of course, and there'll probably be dozens of remasters, or upgrades or whatever. But what are you looking forward to in 2021 for gaming? What are you seeing here? What?
Well, a handful of things, I suppose, but not too much, I guess. You know, and it's funny to talk about new things, but my biggest thing I'm looking forward to is that Mass Effect remaster.
Yeah.
You know, it was such a great experience, and probably the greatest video game experience I've ever had, ever. And I've been wanting to kind of replay through that trilogy again, just because I don't know. Even though I got so many new things to do and play, it's still just so awesome. So I'm really, I'm most looking forward to that. Outside of that, though, the games that I'm kind of looking forward to, I think there's a new Xbox game coming out in like a week or two, I think, called The Medium, that looks really cool. Have you seen anything about that?
I haven't heard anything about that one, no.
Okay, so I don't really know a whole lot about it either, but it's I think it's kind of a survival horror thing, but it's really based on like a medium, a psychic medium type of
Okay.
thing.
Okay, that's cool. That sounds
And
good.
you play through the game, but you play from both kind of a real world and like I guess that supernatural world at the same time. It's like split
Oh,
screen.
that's
So
kind of neat. Yeah.
certain things you do, affect it's different in both worlds, in different ways. So that's exciting. Something different. I talk about different games. Halo Infinite is probably a bigger one I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to.
that's going to be huge. Yeah.
Probably won't come out till later in the year.
Probably.
I'd like to see another Forza Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
It's being new to the Xbox. Again, just playing through 4 and it's amazing. On the PlayStation side, I don't know. A lot of God of War probably.
Okay. Yeah. God of War.
God of War.
Yeah, because God of War, that's on there now. They give it away free. The game is tremendous. Yeah.
Yeah, and then who knows really where those dates go with Elder Scrolls and Starfield or any of that. I don't know that we'll see that in 2021, but
yeah.
Obviously if those hit, I'd be super stoked for it. But as far as what we know about, those are the things I'm most excited for.
Well, I'll tell you, some of the games in particular that I'm interested, Outriders is going to be February on PS4 and PS5, and that's a looter shooter.
Delayed, by the way?
Yeah, well, it's February. As far as I know, no, it's still February. But I know that it looks great. It's a looter shooter, which I love those. So I'm looking forward to that. It looks tremendous, and I've been kind of following that one. A couple other ones that I have seen that is interesting.
Delayed till April.
Sorry. Yeah, it's April now. Yeah, okay. So it was delayed, which is fine because delay it to make it better. Instead of because when they rush it, it's just we don't need another where we need 20 updates later and whatever the thing. We talked about it earlier. That Back 4 Blood. Basically, the makers of Left 4 Dead is bringing back Left 4 Dead, but they're calling it Back 4 Blood, and it looks great. And that game is great because I love the Left 4 Dead series, and there's World War Z came out the year before, whatever, and it's like that. And there's a Alien one called Extinction that's like that, but this is made by the people who made that, so that's going to be really cool. Like you said, the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, they are putting it on PS4, which is great. That's something I've played through it so many, but just to play it again, to have it, I'm so looking forward to that. That is going to be huge. I'm right there with you on that one. Interestingly enough, if you are a Warhammer fan, of course, the new Xbox will get the Warhammer game that's like Left 4 Dead, based in the 40K universe. I'm totally jealous. And but they are doing another Blood Bowl, and a couple other Warhammer games are coming out for PS4, and of course I'm a big fan of that. But they are doing. I can't wait for this Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires. I don't know how because the Empire games got some strategic elements. I don't know how they're going to incorporate that into the open world setting of Dynasty Warriors 9. But guess what? I'm buying it. We also have on PS4 this year coming out, and you might be interested, John. Earth Defense Force World Brothers is coming out, so we got another.
Oh,
yeah, and love Earth Defense Force, love that series. And anybody that has never played that, go out and buy Earth Defense Force 5. Me and John here, we were playing every night for a while. We would just crack up, just laughing, and it's one of the most ridiculous, over-the-top, cheeseball, fun games you'll ever play. I even really liked Iron Rain a lot, even though it was much more modern and westernized. But 5 really is where it's at, and that game is excellent. But we do have another Earth Defense called Earth Defense Force World Brothers. I don't know much about it. They are doing Earth Defense Force 6. So we are getting a sequel. I think World Brothers might be a sequel to Iron Rain. 6 is the 5. There are 2 series going on in that, folks. It's one that's based in Japan and in Europe, and the other one's based in like the Americas. So it's like it's almost like the Black Ops and Call of Duty thing. It's really strange, So that's pretty good. And another game I'm actually looking forward to, believe it or not, and I know it's kind of along the same lines as the Avengers, but I'm looking forward to Gotham Knights. It's looking pretty sweet,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
without like the live service stuff. And I've been watching stuff on that. I'm like, man, that looks pretty badass. And because
I've heard about that.
I love the
Yeah.
Arkham series is great, and it kind of is taking cues from that. So I'm like, hey, so I'm really interested in Gotham Knights. That's one that I'm kind of like that
Yeah,
looking.
I don't care
That's
if it's
looking
not
good.
Batman. You know,
Yeah.
even if it's the other supporting characters, they're all great. And,
Yeah.
you know, I trust Rocksteady and what
Mm-hmm.
they got going on and what they do.
Yeah. So that's just one of the other games. I'm also looking forward to Vampire the Masquerade. I used to play the one on PC years ago. It's an open world vampire. The open world vampire it was fantastic back in the day. So there is a lot of games that are coming out, and I'm really looking forward to a lot of stuff that's already been like kind of like, hey, thrown out there. Dying Light 2, you know, that's one. There's a lot of stuff that's just you know, coming out. Elder Scrolls Legends on the PS4, that's one. So there's just different ones that are coming out, and I'm just kind of like 2021 in gaming is going to be tremendous, and like you said, there's going to be a lot involved. I'm hoping. The other thing I'm looking forward to is I'm really hoping that they squash this pandemic. I hope things get back to normal with that stuff. I hope we can go back to normal, and I'd also hope and pray that if there's any companies out there, big and small, you probably won't watch this, but if you do, or if you get wind of it, you know, on Unpaid Gamers, because you know we're not getting paid to do this. We do this out of our love for it. If you decide to get a license for comics or something, or you're making a game that looks really awesome, and you want, let's look at this trying to do it live service. Don't, because the live service games that have come out in the past couple of years, they have all failed, and it's because it's not a good time. It's mainly your greed and avarice, and it's like you make that grind too much, and you try to kind of force people's hand. Let's buy the stuff so we don't have to grind. Just don't do it. And if you do decide to do that, I implore you to look at two games that do it. They only two that I'm aware of that does it right. Final Fantasy 14 or whatever, 15 with Noctis and them, because even though that has multiplayer components, online components, that game kind of has been treated like the live service, and they just they killed it. They have done so much content to that game without charging a tremendous amount of money, and just doing updates that added to the game without forcing people to spend anything. It's not grindy. They really killed it with that game. And I actually want to say that I would say Dynasty Warriors 9, because Dynasty Warriors 9 didn't start out this way, but it's kind of live service now with the stuff they've added. But they, again, same thing. They just added and added and added and added and added without really charging, and they do sell some stuff, but it's not egregious. I mean, I think the season passes are a little much. I disagree with that, but they did add some live service aspect and did it right. But if you are deciding to do that, guys, developers out there, either don't or stand up to the developers, publisher, and say, look, we can't do that. This stuff fails. Nobody wants it. So just try to make a good decision on that. But like I said, outside of the games that I'm looking forward to, I'm hoping at some point to get one of the new systems. And I'm torn about which one, to be perfectly frank with you. But I'll probably still get a PS5, irregardless of, just because I have way too much stuff on my PS4, and so I like to still play those games. So
well, you're one of the people, a lot like me, though. When you get a new system, you don't throw your old one out. So
no, you don't. You keep that. Yeah.
You do. There's advantages of staying in the same family, but I'm very much early adopter. I got lucky enough to score both of them, really.
Yeah.
But in your shoes, give it a few months, you'll have a better handle on what's the smarter decision, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Because right now, I mean, when I look at the overall library and what's available, it's like, yeah, you know, I can wait because, you know, I'm still going to be able to buy Far Cry 6. I can still buy AC Valhalla. I can still buy a lot of the games on PS5.
The only thing is Demon's Souls. Like,
yeah.
I think that's really it.
Pretty much. Miles Morales, is it on PS4?
It is, yeah.
Okay, so yeah. So right now, just Demon's Souls, and I look at it like, well, you know, I want to play it, obviously, but it's not a deal breaker if I don't right away. I've waited this long, I can wait longer. But 2021, yeah, 2021 is going to be a tremendous year in gaming, and I just really hope that we don't have these layoffs, we don't have these crunch times where people are working 100-hour weeks, which that's probably a tall order ask. I just hope that everyone out there in development land give us some new IPs. You know, if you're going to remaster some stuff, great. Remaster some stuff, you know, that we haven't seen. I don't need you to remaster Borderlands 3. I don't need you to remaster The Outer Worlds. I don't need you to master. Just give us some. Go back to that past like they did in 2020. Give us some really cool games from our past, and I think that would be really cool. To see that, you know.
I think either way, you know, companies are at the very least, going to be able to handle this, the rest of this pandemic situation a little bit better. Just
I think
because
so. No, I agree with you.
Used to it, you know, so I feel like it's probably the impact on gaming is probably at its worst. So
yeah,
I would like to think, you know, it's sunnier skies moving forward.
Yeah, I would like to. I would like
weirdness of the new systems, right? Like,
yeah.
Throughout, you know, you're either going to make it for both or one or the other. So,
well, I would like to. I don't want to go too long because it's been like almost 2 hours. We've talked about 2020, and I know people. If you tune in, we may have not touched base on anything, but please comment and write us to let us know on YouTube, and if there's any stories we may have missed or do you would like to share, go ahead and give us your top 3 games of 2020. We'd love to hear from y'all. 2020 was crazy. A lot of highs in the gaming industry, a lot of lows, you know, and I hope those that were laid off of 2020, either due to the pandemic or because of Activision being buttheads, I hope that they landed on their feet and got new jobs, because those are a lot of talented individuals who bring us these games that we love and spend our hardcore money on. There's probably some games that came out that we didn't mention, or there's some subjects, but you know, you can't touch base on everything because so much happens, and a lot of it just kind of blurs. Like you said, oh yeah, Doom Eternal came out, you know, so it's one of those things that, you know, if we did miss anything, you know, I apologize for that. We apologize for that, but you know, yeah, okay, he doesn't, but yeah, I apologize because, you know, maybe I'm more sympathetic. But the thing is like, if you like this video, please subscribe to Unpaid Gamers and subscribe to Gaming Roundtable. Before we close this out, John, what is you going to be streaming next for us?
Well, I'll probably suck it up and show my bad playing skills with Demon's Souls, I think.
Okay.
And then I'm definitely going to do some more Halo.
Awesome.
I want to continue that playthrough of the Halo Master Chief Collection.
That sounds good, man. I think I'll be tuning into your Demon's Souls, and I promise you, I've had many years with that series, and there are, even now, I'll play it and be like, I just suck. I'm like, what the hell, man? You know, so. But I love those series. I'm looking forward to seeing. I'd love to see some of that Master Chief stuff, because Halo's, you know, I didn't always like the game, and I kind of came around years later, taste changed, and I was like, hey, Halo's pretty boss. And I think what sold me was Halo Reach when I got it for free on 360, and I played it, and I was like, this is pretty damn good. So, ODST was great.
Chief Collection is definitely great. It is weird with the Xbox Twitch, and then I just exported it over.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. That would be something they'll probably end up adding at some point, I'm assuming.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, because
there's definitely some quality loss in that.
Well, per my announcements I did earlier tonight, my upcoming streams, I'm still going to do that State of Play Warhammer Inquisitor throwback week to Warhammer Week, because Warhammer Week was just jacked with everything going on, and I'd like to finish. That's one of the last things I wanted to do, because that game is phenomenal. This new season that's out on it, like Diablo, it's amazing. And again, of course, going to touch base on all the different Monster Hunter games, either starting Sunday or Monday. I'm going to try Sunday, push for Sunday, if all comes according to plan, because and I'll probably will start with the king of the Monster Hunter games, Monster Hunter World, and then go from there with your God Eaters and your Tokidens and your Dauntless and all the different games that are available now in that genre. And I think I am going to do, I talked about earlier, I might do a Souls week. I think I will do a Souls genre week, which I will show you Dark Souls 2 and 3 and Bloodborne and Surge 2 and Lords of the Fallen and Immortal Unchained and Remnant from the Ashes and all the plethora, Neo 2 and all. There's so many of those.
Let's see. So Dark Souls. Do you have the remastered one?
I do not have the first Dark Souls remastered. No, I do not. And the only reason I didn't get it was because I have it on my 360, and it's kind of like, well, I have played it, and I told myself I'll wait till they deep sell it, like $10, $20, $15, and then I'll get it, because I have actually completed Dark Souls 1 7 times. So. Which is weird, because I also completed Lords of the Fallen 7 times, but it's 7's a magic number. But no, I have completed Dark Souls, and I remember the last time I played it, somebody watched me play it from the beginning and said, "You make the game look really easy," and I said, "It's not easy. I just know what the fuck I'm doing." So, and I still get slaughtered at times, because those bosses are no joke, and there's a boss in...
I feel like I don't know what I'm doing most of the time. But, what you say about just going through it multiple times, once you die, then you have to go back and get your body, or you have to go back through for whatever, how many time you play through the level. It does get easier as you know what's coming. So.
Yes, and as you level up and use your souls, and strengthen yourself up, it does get a little easier. But it's interesting, because the one thing that I will say, and I don't know this of Demon Souls, but Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, the game is really hard and challenging and tough. The last bosses of 3, 2, and 1 are not. It's the weirdest thing. Bloodborne's the same way. The last boss in those games, I don't know what it is, with From Software. I guess because you're so used to everything, the bosses are not hard. Like, the last boss are really not hard. You can YouTube it. People are like, well, it's not even that hard. And I think this is your reward for putting up with the game. you know, I mean, you still can get slaughtered. Don't get me wrong. It's not like it's like, oh, they hit you a couple times, you're still fucked. But the point is like, I think at that point you're so used to mechanics and tells and what to do, they don't feel difficult to me. That I never thought I was like, man. But
I'll let you know if I get that far.
Yeah, but Dark Souls, I think I will do a Souls week after Hunter week, because that is a genre, and that's a genre that didn't exist a few years ago, and then it became its own thing, just like Monster Hunt genre wasn't a thing until other game companies started jumping on that. Now it's a thing, so it's two genres born out of basically fandom, where people bought into it, and other companies are like, hey, let's do that. So so it's really cool, and there's a lot of those games too. So I'll be showcasing the ones and probably ones you don't know. But that's my next streaming, will be the Monster Hunt genre. I hope, John, that I know it may not be something that you're into, but I hope you watch them. So maybe you can, hey, that's pretty cool. You might change your mind, but you might not. But it's still, they're really fun games to play, and very challenging at times. And Monster Hunter World in particular, there's some Dark Souls like moments in that game where you're like, fuck. And they took a little cues from that. Capcom said they did, and when you drink potions in the game, it's just like the same speed as the Estus flask, almost the same animation. You're like, son of a bitch, drink faster. But I'm going to be streaming that next, so I hope everybody tunes into that. And I know this was a lengthy video, but you know what? 2020 was only 365 days, but it sure the hell felt longer. So a lot went on, and a lot of things happened with the pandemic and games and different things. So we're still kind of reeling from it. Hopefully this will get better this year, because I'm well past over last year at this point. So but I want to thank John. I thank you, Posthuman Guy, my friend, for joining me here on this year in review. We tried to talk about game releases and different subjects and different things that came out. I hope that it was informative to some of you all to kind of look back at 2020, the crazy year of 2020, and how, you know, our gaming and different things that came about. And again, thanks. I want to give a shout out to Banloss, the man, the myth, the Apex Legend. He's still kicking some ass on Apex Legends. I look forward to your streams coming up. I'm definitely going to check them out. And folks out there, please subscribe to Unpaid Gamers on YouTube. We are on YouTube. We are on Twitch. Please subscribe to Banloss and on his Apex Legends stuff, or hit those like buttons, and please subscribe to the Gaming Round Table here, the People's Machine, bringing you the Gaming Round Table as always with stuff. I do have State of Plays coming up, and I'm sure there'll be a what the fuck video in the future for something that gets daggone released. So we'll figure that one out as we go. And please check out Posthuman Guy's streams coming up here of his Demon Soul streams. See how this man gets good at a game that it's hard to get good at. And yeah, it's kind of rough.
Or watch me fail and laugh.
Yeah, and then and of course watch him on the Halo stuff, because John's been playing Halo as long as I've known him when Xbox came out, and he was early adopter of Xbox Live and was playing over the net for that. So it's cool that we come.
Hey, you remember that Xbox Connect, by the way?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, because of course it's got all these multiplayer maps and Blood Gulch is on there, and it just reminds me doing the Xbox.
Oh, the old Blood Gulch, and let me tell you, folks. I mean,
Xbox Live was a thing.
Yeah, before Xbox Live was a thing, you did that, and it's funny because, that all kind of, in my opinion, started with a good old GoldenEye 64. Don't look at my screen, 4-way, and those were awesome. Those multiplayer stuff, and Halo kind of was one of the early adopters of that, and just put it to the forefront. And Halo multiplayer was pretty much king for the longest time, up until COD. Really, COD kind of came along and kind of put the kibosh on that. But there's people who still love Halo. Halo's a big series. Love it, like it or not, it has impacted the industry. So check out Posthuman Guy when he starts streaming the Halo stuff. I mean, there's some really good. Does the Master Chief Collection feature ODST?
It does.
Then that was really good. That was way better than that. That was a fun game. I did go back a number of years later and played it, and that game is really good. That was a cool concept at night, and you're the soldier, and it's a kind of open world sort of, and then you play the battles during the day. Very different, but you know what? Really good. I think that was one of those really interesting games, and that was one of the series that if you own the Master Chief Collection and you haven't played it, you'd be doing yourself a disservice not to play it. That was a really cool one in that game series there. But like I said, check out his streams, check out Apex Legends of Banloss, our guy Rob on that, and check out Gaming Roundtable, and you'll be seeing some monster hunting going on, and I'll show you off my skills or lack thereof. And I am going to talk about the competition between God Eater, Monster Hunter World, and Tokenin, because that has been a long debate for the past couple years about which is better or why is one this, and people do, believe it or not, argue over this on YouTube. There's some toxicity there. There's something that people just really say, well, this or that. But I want to talk about that, because I want to talk about how those three games, those are the main three that compete with one another, and they just do. Monster Hunter's been around the longest, but you know what? God Eater and Tokenin do some things that I wish Monster Hunter did, and I'm not saying one's better, but you'll find out this week when I discuss that on the Gaming Roundtable. And John, thank you again for joining Gaming Roundtable, sitting down and doing that, and I hope we can stream again, because I love being able to have you here and talk on the roundtable. And we'll
I'm sure we'll find something.
we'll have to get into that. I think maybe we should do a throwback week to open world and redo that Red Dead. That didn't turn out great. So because we did talked about Red Dead Online, and it was a great video, and then there was no voice. So maybe you'll get the Red Dead video from us, guys, real soon. And thank you again for tuning in to this episode of the Gaming Roundtable 2020, the year in review. Thank you all. We love you all. And as always, gamers, good gaming.